Welcome to this episode of Chattin with Staxx. I'm your host, Bill Staxx, and today I got PeeWee.
Yeah, was that in Washington?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know the guy. One of the guys that was involved in that. I won't say his name, but he's out of prison now. He did like 18 years
For that?
Not for that beating, for a murder that happened, and he took a plea bargain for aiding and abetting the murder. I think he got something like 10 to life or whatever the hell he got, or 15 years. I forget what it was. I think maybe he did 15 years. But he's out now. And he calls me all the time. I love him, man. He's like I said, bro, the baddest dudes, the baddest of the bad I know, they're all out. I mean, out. And I'm talking like
what do you think?
Get down, this shit. They're all out of the club.
So what do you think of them going after somebody who was a former member?
The what?
What do you think of that situation of them going after someone who was a former member who was just talking about it to people?
Well, I think it's pretty childish, you know what I mean? Unless the guy's talking shit, like Rick. When the first time I ever seen a podcast from Rick, he was a little wrong on shit, and all I did was reach out to him. And when he got a hold of me, I just said, well, that was wrong, this wrong. And then he checked it. And, I talked to Rick. He's been to my house. Hey, he's been to my house and stuff. So he does do his homework. He tells me shit that I didn't even know, man. Like, with Squeak with a sealed letter to the judge. And he's still a Hell's Angel. Rick does his homework, and he says a lot of stuff. And everybody's like, I don't know how the club doesn't go after him, kill him. You know why? I think the club's feeding him a lot of that shit, too. A lot of they use him for a lot of they'll call Rick and give him a little info here and there, so the propaganda keeps going.
Yeah, I don't get involved with the politics of it.
Right,
none of it.
I could care less. You know what I mean?
I'm just here to get your stories out there and share your stories with the world. I don't want to get involved with the politics. I've had people reach out, no comment. Basically.
Right. Yeah. Somebody told me, hey, man, why don't you write another book? I said, it took me 15 years to write the one I did. That's why it's kind of all over the place, because I had to keep changing shit. I just don't have it in me to write another book. I wouldn't want to, I see like Sonny wrote all them books, and I'm not, throwing mud on Sonny, but I started reading some books. They were shit. They were garbage books,
Yeah.
And then, Chuck wrote that book, and I read like one or two chapters, and I was done with it, When Matter wrote the book, I read that in prison. I was in prison. I only read that because he put my name in there and naturally said some shit. That's what was the funniest part when they interviewed him on A&E. Yeah. He goes, well, PeeWee's a good guy, but he talks too much. I'm thinking, I talk too much. How about you fucking rat? You ratted on like 40 guys. So don't tell me I talk too much. Am I talking? I'm telling you a story. I ain't sitting there telling the story to a grand jury or, to the cops.
Like he did. He's one of the biggest cooperators in the history of the Hells Angels.
Right. And that's what really pissed me off on his part of the show when he says, oh, yeah, who better to send for his loyalty is PeeWee to go bomb a tattoo shop in Milwaukee. And that was totally bullshit. And that's why I said on the show, bullshit. He never sent me there. Never, ever were those words spoken out of his mouth. There was another guy in the club. I'm not even going to say the punk's name. He's dead. They threw him out of the club, and he died of a drug overdose. And they kicked him out because he was hanging out with a snitch. And he's the one that went and did it because he was bragging about it.
So this really happened. What
yeah,
happened?
It really happened. But I wasn't the one who did it. This other Jagoff did it. And what bothers me, Billy, is why would Pat throw me out there if he still didn't have any animosity toward me and say, well, I sent PeeWee to do it. throwing me under a bus for something I didn't even do when he could have said the real guy's name because he's dead.
And he said you were the distributor of methamphetamine throughout the Midwest and shit, right?
I have never, ever sold not even a bump of that shit. You know what I mean? I could have got all those free meth I wanted. Believe me, it was around me all the time. Yeah, he said I was a Midwest distributor. And I sold my house to another guy in a different club. He bought my house under the table because, he didn't have a legit job. He was stealing,
Yeah.
So he paid me a big chunk of cash. And at the going away party, I told Pat all that. And would you believe it? It was in his paperwork when I got his paperwork. So I'm sitting there talking to him like I'm talking to you. I tell you, hey, Billy, I sold my house to Joe Blow right here. He gave me $50,000 down. He's making house payments, and we're doing it, under the sheets here, Nobody knows what's going on. I tell him that, and he fucking tells the cops that.
When did you find out Pat was a cooperator? And what were your thoughts?
I think he was cooperating. Before he even went into prison. Because I think I thought he was facing like 20, 25 years. Even in the feds, they gave him 17 years. He could have done the time. I mean, I went in for a goddamn fist fight, and I did 3 years, okay? And that pissed me off, but I did it. I boo-hooed. I said, oh, the club put me in there. No. I put myself in there because I did what I had to do as a Hell's Angel.
Did they pay your legal fees?
Nope. They didn't pay any of it. They didn't pay anything. Again, like I said, I didn't go into prison. I didn't talk smack. I didn't talk any shit like that, People knew who I was and what I was, and I had a lot of people hanging around me, that I just draw people. That's what I'm trying to say. That's how I build my charters. I mean, when I joined the Sinners, there was only 10 guys, and 2 years I had it up to 26 guys. I split off with 6 guys from Las Vegas. The next thing I know, I got 12 guys. I have a personality that absorbs people. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
Pat kind of had that personality too, right?
Yeah.
But from my aspect, I think Pat was kind of like a bully, very manipulative.
He was. He would play you against me and me against you. And then he would step in the middle and say, Billy, let me talk to PeeWee. I'm going to straighten this shit out, okay? This is bullshit. You be all right, Pat. All right, Pat. Then he
You're
come to me.
Hero.
Yeah. Then he come to me. Hey, let me talk to you, man, about fucking Billy. See, now it's fucking Billy, and before it was, yeah. He'll say, listen, man, you guys got to squash this. You're both in the club, blah, blah, blah. Then hey, Billy, what's up? Hey, bro, we give each other a hug. And then you look at it. Pat's the fucking good guy. Pat put us back together, brother. And another prospect, Jimmy's the one who told me that. He said, don't you realize Pat's a genius the way he works people? And he is. He is. And I said in my book, I had no animosity toward him. And then he comes right out in that show and he says that shit. And he said some other shit too, because the A&E guys were saying, oh, he told us that you did this. And it was something I did. And I could bring it out and I could say it, but I don't want to. I already got busted for it. I mean, people went to prison for it. And it was something I did,
I was shocked when Pat said, oh, they told me have sex with the girl whether she wants to or not. And I did.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Right.
That's wild.
They went through they were Grim Reapers, and they went through a lot, I know that, to become Hell's Angels. But Pat did run the state with an iron fist. He really did, bro. He kept the outlaws out. I went up there when I was a sinner, and I said, why don't you let me put a charter of sinners up here? You can get to know me more better, then maybe I can become what you are. That's what I said.
Yeah.
And he said, nah, we don't want any more clubs in the state. We got way too many now. So if you want to do what I am, just come up here and do it. So he basically rolled out the red carpet for me on that.
Don't you
And
wish
you
you
know,
would have went a different way, kind of like maybe started in a different charter
yeah,
than starting there?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like when I went to Frisco, San Francisco to prospect again the second time, there's no head games like that, bro. It was nothing. And there were so many charters of Hell's Angels in California, you know what I mean? Like every city had one. You could bomb around and see 10 clubhouses, like in one night. They didn't play no head games and shit. But I think what it was, Bill, is I lived in Wisconsin and the move to Minnesota was like right over the state line. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had a job lined up there through the Teamsters and shit, which I went right to driving truck and working. And when I went to San Francisco, there was no jobs. I had my withdrawal card from the Teamsters. Man, all I ended up doing is bouncing, at a nightclub. And the guy paid me 25 cash an hour. So if I worked 4 hours, I made 100 that night, 125. He worked me 4 or 5 nights a week. But you still got to remember, it was San Francisco, and it's very expensive. It's like living in New York.
How long did you stay there, San Francisco?
2 years. 2 years, and I was going broke, and I told the guys, hey, I got to get out of here, or I'm going to end up having to leave the club. Bro, if I was making $500 a week cash, $2,000 a month, right? They gave me an apartment in the back. In the back, they had 1, 2, 3, 4 apartments in the back. The clubhouse went from one side, one street, Tennessee, all the way over to the next street, which I can't even remember the name of the street anymore. But it had trolley car tracks on it and stuff. That's how far the clubhouse was. So they put me on the other side, and they said, hey, because I went there to prospect on my own. I didn't bring my wife or anything because it was just too chaos there. And then once I made member, I sent for her right away when she came.
And they all came and moved with you?
Well, my kids were already grown up and on their own. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, your wife came and moved with you.
Yeah, my wife came out there and she actually had a nervous breakdown there because, Christ, she came there. She don't know anything about the city. And as soon as she got there, bro, I got busted on a beat in Wyoming for a guy that got his nose broke. And they took me back to Wyoming. And it was pretty funny because it was in the town of Belle Fourche. Did you ever hear of it?
No.
It's going to be kind of funny when I tell you this. Did you ever watch that movie, The Cowboys, with John Wayne?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, the little boys are taking the cattle.
Yeah.
They were taking it to Belle Fourche. He said, let's get these cows to Belle Fourche. So I go in there. It's still an old town. The courthouse was the original courthouse from the 1800s. And I walked in there, bro, and I surrendered myself because they had a warrant out for me.